Hey guys, welcome back. This is Jury Rig Garage. I'm Davis. Today we're going to continue with fixing the abandoned Fiero. Have a whole lot in store. We're going to be fixing the shifter, getting new clutch pedal in, getting the engine wiring all fixed. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And at the very end of the video, we're going to drive it for the first time that this car has moved in years. If you want to help out the channel, be sure to join us as a member down below, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's get back to the video. So guys, I'm going to be putting the clutch pedal back in. You can see a little bit better in the light here. Real nice. There's a clutch master cylinder up here with the arm, this guy right here, which I'm touching, and that slides onto it, and up here it bolts in place the clutch pedal, and that way when you push the clutch pedal in, it pushes in the master cylinder. I think I'm just going to go ahead and get this installed. We have new nylon locking nut, which I believe is a replacement for this one, or I don't know. There's a cross bolt that goes through the brake pedal and the clutch here, so gonna go ahead and get this in place, and I'll show you the end result with some light once we're up there. All right guys, just got the clutch pedal in. Try to show you some light here. So there's the pedal, and then up here you can see where it connects, where it pivots. There's a long bolt that goes through the top of that thing. Struggle was wedging it up into there. I had to unbolt to the bracket there just to widen it out a little bit, and then slide it up there, and then get it in place. There's a clutch master cylinder where it connects. You can see the bushing, the brass bushing there. It seems a little bit too small. I think I'll just need to swap out for the newer design clutch master because it's supposed to be smaller. On the Rodney Dickman website, it said that that bushing should fit the old style, but I don't know. I'll just have to like mess with it. Maybe even get something a bit bigger. But overall, it's all good. Need to still like bleed out the clutch and everything, but seems really stiff, which is great. No more worrying about the clutch pedal bending under, stress there, because it's a common problem with it. Now what I'm gonna do is tackle some of this rat's nest. As you can see, I tried repairing some of this, but I need the OEM connectors for the coil here. Also just needed a new coil. You got new plug wires, new spark plugs, so I'm gonna go ahead and start working on that. Then I might work on replacing the clutch slave cylinder here, because I believe this is where it is leaking. It's definitely wet around the bleeder here. Also, the boot is ripped, so I don't know if that prevents it from, leaking or causes it to leak or whatnot, but it'll be pretty simple. It's just two nuts and then the bottom banjo bolt, and pull it out. So I have the new coil here with the new connectors. As you can see, the old one looks like they just self-tapered in to this. I think normally it's supposed to sit out around here, but I don't know. I'm just gonna place it back where it was originally, right here. Down the road when we 3800 swap it, we're not gonna have that, obviously. So this is just to get it by. They didn't have the proper connectors, so literally all I did is just clip off some of these butt connectors, or these ground terminal ends, whatever you'd call it, and just shoved them in there. Obviously not great, wiggles, it can easily fall out. So I'm gonna go ahead and start wiring this up the same. So this black wire, white wire goes to these two guys, and these two white go here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting these up, getting in place, and then I'll probably start tackling the plug wires and plugs. Alright guys, I got the new coil in. I had to relocate it a little bit because I didn't account for how short this one was going to be, but that is fine. Got those done. I replaced this connector here because if you look on the old one, the clip was broken, so it could just fall out. I did buy a replacement for the other one here, but it actually looked just fine. Last piece I really need to replace is down here, the water temp sensor. You can see it's just totally busted. So gotta replace that connector and then do the plug wires, spark plugs, and then I can pretty much start putting the engine back together. Well, I guess I still need to do the slave cylinder. Then I'll be able to put everything back together, be able to put the battery in, and I should be able to fire it up here. Also, in that time, had the M8 by 0.8 or M5 by 0.8 tap come, so I was able to drill and tap this out, put the bolt in. I got everything all lubed up and reassembled, so this is completely ready to go. This is all back together. All the C-clips are in, and everything's really tight. It's really nice. No play in it at all, basically. Can't wait to get it bolted into the car because it's really hard to kind of feel it while it's outside. So I actually think I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in the car, just bolt it in, just to see how it feels, because I'm really excited for this one. All right, got everything I need, all the nuts and the shifter. Just got to remove the skeleton. Don't worry about that, that's all good. Previous owner broke that. Wasn't me, guys, I swear. There we go. These ones are easy enough to get to. So there's no shift cable obviously in here yet, but I'm trying to feel the side to side. Oh my god, that feels so much better. This was so hard to do before. Man, that is a night and day difference. Still a little bit of tension going over for the lockout, kind of for the reverse, but did not feel like that before. Dear God, that was not good how it was before. So that'd be like first, second, third, fourth, and then reverse up there. Now all I want to do is get the shifter cables in, but I got to finish up in the engine bay real quick. But yeah, now that that's in, I can start reassembling everything. And man, I can't wait to just test this out. Need to bleed it first though. I need another person. I did buy the self bleeder for the slave. We'll see if that works. I might need to bleed the master up the front, so we'll see about that. But man, so happy with that. It feels so much better now. All right guys, I'm gonna be installing new plugs and wires. So a quick tip for replacing these, you know, they're specific length wires. So say I start with this one, the farthest one out here first. I'd only do one at a time, just so I know which one is which. I know the center one goes to the coil. This one I just removed. And then come over to my new plug wires. And I just find which one is the closest in length. So, you know, there we got our winner here. I'll go ahead and set that here, move the stuff out of the way. Then I'll replace this plug and then put the new boot in, and just do that for all 6. All right guys, just got all the plugs and wires swapped over. Some of the old plugs, especially on the back, had some water on them, so that's not great. Overall, they didn't look like that bad, but just some oil on the threads, and then the rears, all 3 rears, completely covered in water, so not great. All right guys, it's the next day, and I went ahead and got the new coolant temperature sensor in. So this is the old one. I basically just unscrewed it and then quickly screwed in the new one. I didn't lose too much coolant. You can see how bad the connector was, just completely destroyed. I doubt it was even making connection. Inside the car, there's a water temperature gauge, an external one, so I'm assuming they broke that. For some reason, went through the whole effort to install a gauge for it and didn't even attempt to fix it. I mean, no guarantee this will fix it, but you know, I made it nicer, got new sensor and connector. One thing I did find while I was going through this was I was looking at the map sensor, and it's kind of just zip tied on. Its connector is also destroyed, so I doubt this was making connection, and I did have an issue where I would get the motor running. I fixed the back leak on it, I don't know if I mentioned that, and now it doesn't stay alive without the back leak, basically. The back leak, I believe, was keeping it alive for when the car was shown to me, so I don't know if I can get one of these in town. I'm gonna have to order it maybe, so that'll put me back a couple days, which really sucks. I really wanted to get it fired up. But I think a new map sensor and then a new wire for it, or a new connector for it, that'll definitely be good. But it's crazy how many of these connectors are so old and brittle that they seemingly broke almost all of them. A couple other things that I have questions about is this guy right here. You can see I redid some of the other wiring here. Any of these connectors I redid. This one was just open, so I do not know what this went to at all. The only thing I can guess is off the battery terminal, there is this wire, but I don't know if they were supposed to be connecting or what this is even supposed to go to. This is also kind of just like zip tied out of the way. It kind of looks like a fuel pump wire, but clearly the fuel pump is connected, so don't know what that's about. There was another ground down here, I forget where it was. Yeah, there's a ground wire right here. Not sure where that's supposed to go to. Looks like it was just self-tapered in. Yeah, there's the main ground from the engine block to the chassis. I don't know where the ground went for the battery strap. Oh yeah, it comes off there. I did re-terminate this. I basically cleaned it, put it on better. There's a lot of corrosion. All these connectors I redid as best I could. The only question I have is, what does this one go to? Because I don't have anything else here that looks like it's missing anything other than this, but I don't want to just put power to that, you know, direct battery power, without knowing what it is. So that kind of sucks. Some of these things I do need to go back over. This thing looks like they just taped this. I'll just put a new waterproof connector there. Engine's basically done. All the new wires, plugs, all that is in. I got the water temperature sensor fixed, got the coil fixed and remounted. Tracing these wires down, it goes to what I believe maybe is an oil pressure sensor. I have no idea what this is. It's like a little canister with a threaded piece, and these three wires go down into a loom that connect to it off of this. It's done pretty poorly. I wish I could redo that. It's gonna be kind of a pain to get down there. Might have to do it from under the car. But this one is the only one that remains. Like, what the heck is this? Just have questions. There's these four wires. It seems like they go to the oil pressure. I'm not sure. And then this one, which is just broken. All right, guys, what I'm going to do next is attempt to replace the slave cylinder here. So as you can see, it's this guy right here. I believe this is where my leak is. I think this is weeping a little bit, and the boot is ripped and whatnot. So I'm gonna try to disconnect this. Looks like somebody already replaced the clutch line. That doesn't look stock. I'm gonna disconnect it from down there, and then I'm gonna try removing it from the bracket right there, that bracket bolt. See if I can remove it in that manner so I can get to the nuts easier on there and there. It's kind of blocked by the exhaust. So I'm gonna go ahead and try removing that and seeing how that goes. All right, guys, got the old slave cylinder out, got some fluid on me. Definitely seemed like either water or something was collecting in here, or that was just is it supposed to be screwed in? Anyways, yeah, it looks like it was leaking. Anyways, so there's for this bracket, you can see there's a hole there and a hole here. It was oriented like this in the car, basically like that. Oh, mounts loose now. Interesting. Anyways, so yeah, there's a bolt on top, and then a cross bolt down in there. And the bottom clutch line bolt was a 13 mil in my case. I'm gonna go ahead and get the new slave cylinder swapped over to this bracket here and get it all in place again. And then I guess at that point we can start getting the shifter cables in and go through some of the bleeding process, because I did get the, you know, self bleeder with this for the slave. We'll see how that works. Alright, guys, I got the boot retracted here. I got it lubed. I got the new pin in, lubed up the tip of that as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and reinstall it back in like that, get the clutch line connected, and we can start on the shifter cables. Alright, guys, I am back. That was a massive struggle to get the slave cylinder in, but I did it. As you can see here, all set, all lubed up, and I got the line down there connected. One of the biggest problems is this was a line that somebody had placed. It's not factory, so it was bent to the curvature of where the input was positioned on the old one. So this one's obviously new. It has a little bit different design. It's the aluminum one, so getting that threaded in was a struggle. You also don't want to strip it because it is aluminum, you know, slave cylinder. So what I found I had to do is I had to disconnect the bracket so this moved independently, and I could just easily thread it in and then rebolt it back up. So this is all complete now. We can push on it, obviously no fluid in there. From here, the bleeder, we can go ahead and bleed it. I have that Rodney Dickman manual bleeder, so we'll just connect it to that. Lastly, before I actually add the shifter cables back on, is there is a bushing kit that I bought that's, I believe, is for the Selector. So this goes in the gear. This is the actual Selector one. You can see how wobbly that is. So I bought some bushings to replace that. I'll just have to look up the instructions on how to do that. I believe I did get paper instructions for this, but it'll basically just clean up that play, make it much more stiff. And then Selector, I don't think there's really much we can do about that, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and look into this, get this done, and then we can run the cables and we can try going into gear. All right guys, so this is the select arm. I pulled the cross pin out of right here. So now should be able to pull the cross pin out. Mentions something about it possibly being corroded, so might have to try messing with it a little bit to get it to move. I need my bigger knife hex. More grip. Alright guys, I had to end up taking the bracket off because this pin is basically just completely frozen in there. That's what we're trying to remove on the select arm. That's a select pivot. Basically just had to unbolt the bracket again from the slave cylinder, and then the two nuts and bolts that held this part in, and then from here you basically just snake it out from off the selector, the gear selector. So now we have this. I can take it to the bench and knock this out, because you can see it's a really small cast aluminum arm, and if you're hammering on it, which I was hammering on it, probably shouldn't, you could easily break it, and you don't want to have to replace one of these. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring it over to the vise and support it with like a socket and just work on getting that guy out. Well guys, I had a real rough time with that one. Broke the mount just first off. I don't know how this actually happened. I mean, that's like a really weak area, but I broke off this. And then I literally spent like an hour pounding this thing out, spraying with PB Blaster, heating it up for like 5 minutes at a time, just trying to get as much heat into it as possible. But this was not letting go. Eventually got it out, so I do have that. What I'll need to do is just clean this up and weld this back together. It is cast aluminum, so I should be able to do that. It might not turn out the prettiest, but it'll, you know, it'll have to work. Basically where it was positioned there, I'll just need to get it cleaned up and then tacked on. Not so bad, but you know, kind of sucks. Then I'll need to clean up this surface, and I don't even know if the bushings will fit. Let me go grab them. So these are the new bushings here. This side looks a bit cleaner. Yeah, I think I'll just need to clean up those edges, take a grinder and just flatten those out, and then maybe even like a drill bit and just kind of like smooth out the inside or something, sandpaper, just so that this, you know, will fit properly. Or else all this was for basically nothing, because if it's going to have more play after doing this and, you know, messing up the center diameter, then, you know, whatever. Yeah, I also need a new pin, or I might need to buy a bolt or something to replace this because it is a little bent. I might try cleaning it up with a grinder wheel and see how that does, if it's able to slide in easier, but I don't want to remove too much material because that will introduce more play. So kind of back to what I was saying, I might have just effed myself doing this, but whatever. We'll go ahead and start, you know, trying to reassemble this. All right guys, we're back. I got the bracket all welded up here. Wasn't too bad, just cleaned it up, and it's pretty easy with aluminum when it cracks like that to match it up pretty much exactly how it was before. I cleaned up the surfaces. I also drilled through with a 3/8 inch drill bit to kind of clean up the inside since it was kind of scuffed. I have the new bushings here. They're to be installed like this in the bracket, just through the holes here. It's a pretty tight fit because these from the factory are punched out. Also, this one's kind of messed up from trying to get the pin out. Also, cleaned up the pin and re-drilled the pinhole there for the whole retaining clip. It does remove some material, so it might be a little bit too loose, but I mean, it's still pretty, in the bushing, it's like really tight, so not that big of a problem. So I'm gonna work on getting these bushings in and then the pin in, and we'll be able to reinstall this. All right guys, I got the assembly back together, bracket all welded up, got the new brass fittings in there for it. There's like side to side movement just in there because the interior part of it doesn't have any bushings. I'm thinking the bushings here for the pins, I mean, it's for like the actual actuation movement, not side to side. I don't know if there's something I could have put in there, or if there's some plastic bushing or something in the center, or if it is just supposed to be like that, I have no idea. But I got them installed. They're all good now. Got the pin in. I'll just need to put the cross pin in. It's all put back together, really. And from there, we'll be able to actually start getting the shifter cables in. All right, guys, we are back again. I'm going to show you guys how to put the bracket back on the car because I just figured it out. And I want video reference for myself. Also, I doubt this is really even online to figure out. So basically, you have the actual shift arm that goes up and down. So that, you know, is the what we just replaced with the bushing. It's just the select gear. So I haven't put anything back together yet, really just got in place. It's like a real pain to get this where it needs to be. So what I'll do is I will pull it out here. I have to find the neutral gear that gives us the most range upwards. There we go. Okay, so you see this little notch right here on the selector arm. That notch needs to fit into the notch that's in there, as well as the bracket here. You can see that needs to hook into this. So what I found, best way to do this is find the gear that gives you the most upward range. So that's it right there. Basically just go through them. Like this one I can't even pull up at all. This one's the one that I want to use. A lot of movement up and down. This one, again, nothing. So that's what we want, just so you can get more room up. Then you take your mount, you get it low. Let me see if we can get a good angle of this. Get it low. All right, so that's hooked in. You can see, maybe, that it's in there. And now we need to get the actual selector arm, the nub at the bottom, in the notch. So what you're gonna wanna do is basically just like pry up on this, pry down on the arm, and it should pop in. Let me see if I can, not very good angle for you guys, but there we go. All right, so there's no real trick to it. It's literally just getting the notch in first and then sliding this in. Then I preemptively cleaned up the cross pin and both holes that it needs to go through. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide this through here. Oops. There we are. Now put the cross pin in. There. Yeah, really wobbly and loose, obviously, because the bracket totally isn't on. So now we have to go ahead and get this orientated, just like this. We'll sit under and bolt up to the side of the motor right there. Then we just gotta get our bolts through, and we'll be done with this hellish job. All right, guys, as you can see, the whole mount is all assembled back. Got the slave cylinder in, all good to go. I did have to go back and grind down some of the part of the case, the aluminum case of the transmission here, because it was interfering since I had like broken or bent the bracket of the shift selector. So now that works perfectly fine. There's no interference whatsoever. Going back, you know, thinking back about this, you know, installing the bushings, I was thinking in the moment that it was a bad idea because how much had gone wrong. But seems like it actually was good. The arm, you know, I was able to weld that back in. Everything works smoothly, and there's like hardly any play left to right in this thing anymore. Whereas before, this thing was like you saw in the video, it was like flopping left and right. So that'll be way better for shift selecting. So now, oh guys, with that, I can start putting in the shifter cables. So I'm gonna go ahead and start doing that. I think that'll be a pretty easy task. All I have to do is route it through the firewall, which is already open, down under the, you know, frame of the shifter, you know, center dash or whatever. Just get it in position here. I saved the old retaining clips for here and in the cab, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then they come with new like, I don't know what you call them, the balls for the shift selector, so I don't have to use these old ones. They'll just go in, no problem. And I'll finally be able to like feel how much tighter everything is with the new stuff. So I'm also gonna probably lube this with some grease just so everything moves smoothly. And yeah, feels really good, way tighter. All right guys, so got the new cables here. So one is thinner, one is thicker. The thinner one is the select arm, so the one that we had been working on. It'll connect to this one here, and then the thicker one will connect to the actual shift select. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to feed them from the engine bay in. So the old route coming off these would go up and over, and then it's gonna be pretty hard to show, but between this bracket right here, go through, just kind of hold it up out of the way, and then down through the grommet hole areas. And as you can see in here, that's where they come through. So the bigger one will come right here, I believe. It'll go to this, which is the actual gear selector. And then the smaller one will come through to this one, which will connect to the, or no, I have that backwards. I have to double check which one goes where. I think up here maybe. Anyways, I'll figure it out where it connects to. But yeah, it will be nice. Yeah, down there next to the actual selector here, moves it side to side. So yeah, smaller one goes here, bigger one goes here. All right guys, got them routed through here. Pretty easy to move over everything. And you want to kind of route them as close to the ground as you can, or to the tunnel here. So it's going to be kind of just like back and forth, making sure nothing gets snagged in the engine bay down in here. So I'm going to go ahead and start working on that. I'll probably just do this off camera, but once you get the shifter cable to the bracket, just pops in there. And then there are retaining clips, which just have to double check where I put those. Yeah, there's two of them, or the two for this. Just pop in, slide through the groove, and hold it in place basically. All right guys, as you can see, I have the new lines in here. Once I'm finally finished, I'm going to kind of like zip tie these up out of the way. It's got some, I think these are vacuum lines, these metal lines. So it's metal. I'm gonna zip tie it to it just so it holds up just a little bit above the exhaust. And it's got the heat shielding, so that's all good. I have the remote bleeder and I already started here. So basically there's just a chamber. It's like a one-way valve, so air can't come back into it. So I have that cracked open, ready to go ahead and bleed. I have the master cylinder open here. There is like a tool that you can get that will basically do the same thing for this, which actually might do. I don't know. It's probably, you'd want to do this one first, but I think this one's fine. We're just going to see how it goes. Basically, process for it is just push the clutch pedal. We'll get some air out of the system. I already feel it getting a bit firmer. I can also hear the master cylinder, which it did suck down some fluid, so that means it is getting air out of the system. Yep, you can see it here. I might set up the camera so you guys can see, but it's just going into this Gatorade bottle. All right guys, got everything bled with the self bleeder. It seemed to do like a really good job. The pedal is really stiff now. It comes back super nicely. The shifter feels like super good now. The side-to-side play, I don't think I'll ever get rid of that. That's kind of just how this is designed, but not that bad. The actual like shift lever, like, I mean, it's all one unit. The only pivoting point, probably those bushings are replaced, so still better than it was stock. So we got first gear, second, third, fourth, goes into all gears. I actually wasn't even able to do that before. So that is a huge win, feels way better. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on putting everything back together here, whole interior, all that stuff. And then I'll be able to get the engine stuff all back together. I have a map sensor wire coming, but I think I'm just gonna try to stick the broken one in there, see if that works, because I wanna fire it up and see if it moves. So, but yeah, definitely way better. The clutch feels awesome now. So hopefully that's all it needed, was to get bled, because it has never felt this stiff. And obviously I can now easily get into gears with with this. It just feels so good now that I've got the whole rebuild kit, all the new bushings, everything. It's so much better. And then reverse as well. Still kind of hard to get it up over that, but really it's just a design. It literally has to go over that roller, metal roller. So not a big problem. This is way better now. All right, guys, besides the doors, obviously, I still need to replace the interior and exterior door handle. The interior's back together. I'm missing these two trim pieces. I'm not sure exactly where you might find those. They're not in the car here. Weren't here when I got it, that I remember. But everything's all back in place, all ready to go. Got shifter all back in. Feels way better than before. Couldn't even do that before, which is pretty bad. But yep, I'm gonna go ahead now and start putting the engine stuff back together. All right, guys, I'm back. It's been just a little bit since I last recorded, but I do have everything finished on the Fiero. Well, not finished, obviously, but in a running spec. So last time, I believe I was just getting the shifter stuff done, which is all good, secure now. I got a new map sensor as well as a new connector for it, so I got that swapped over. I triple checked for vacuum leaks. There are 0. It still idles high. Don't know what that's about. Also, the water temp sensor, the replacement and the connector didn't seem to fix that. I'm wondering maybe if that cut wire there is part of it. I don't know. I did ask on Facebook and people are saying it's part of the EGR as well as the oil pressure sender. So I don't know. Still have to figure that one out. I can manually turn on the fans up front on the radiator, so no reason it should be overheating. I topped off the coolant. I basically got everything like ready to drive. The old map was still kind of working and the connector just shoved in there worked, but I wasn't able to get it moving. Basically, I did a bunch of bleeding and I was finally able to get it into second gear, and then I was able to push it into first and then third and fourth, so I can go 1 through 4. Reverse was having problems, but today I did the whole, I replaced the map sensor, did all that, bled it again for like another 30 minutes, and it's now able to move. So I did test it already, but I just wanted to, check it and make sure. So I'm just going to take on a quick drive around the block. The tires that I have on the front are basically bald completely, so definitely don't want to be taken on the streets. And this tire, the rear left, is also leaking air, and you can hear it. It's right there. You can actually see bubbles coming right out of the beads, so it's not like I can just patch it, unfortunately. I mean, I definitely want new tires all around anyways, but just wanted to point that out. But finally, guys, we'll be able to take this 37-year-old car on a drive. It's been sitting for years, saved it from just, I don't know, just deterioration from the elements. I mean, it was falling apart. A lot of work went into this just to get it even moving, but finally do it. I loaded it up with a little bit more gas, so let's go ahead and take it on a quick drive. Alright guys, I'm gonna try this camera angle. You're stuck in the door right now, where it is open because I have the door panel off. Gotta fix the seat belts a little bit, also clean them up. Brakes aren't great in this thing, but it works just fine. Here we go. Moving in the Fiero, finally. Oh god, the camera's all over the place. It'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, it drives just fine. I don't know if the tachometer is accurate because it says it's like always over 3,000. It doesn't really feel that way, but it really doesn't feel at 3,000. Like, that feels maybe like 3,000 there, and that was getting close to 6. So definitely not right. Yeah, going downhill, braking, not the best, but that's fine. Definitely need to bleed the brakes, need to bleed the clutch a bit more. But that second, third gear, that's fourth. But yeah, super stoked finally being able to drive this. Now this is giving me even more inspiration to like keep going with it in its kind of stock form and get it running good. There's some things I still need to replace on it, and I'll discuss that in a little bit, but yeah, I just wanted to take it around the block real quick just to show you guys that it moves. No power steering or anything. Alright, let's see if we can reverse into our spot. that kind of sucks is the e-brake definitely does not work. It says pull up and then press the button, but if I let go, I start rolling forward. So just gonna shut it off and put it in first, and then put the wheel chocks in front of it. And there we go. Well guys, this is a huge success. I was kind of second guessing myself when I went through and did all the shifter stuff and it still wasn't going in gear. Really just needed to be bled more, and it still needs more bleeding for sure. I'm maybe suspecting something with the lines or even the master cylinder. So I'm definitely replacing the master cylinder just because I need the newer style banjo, the pit for the pivot pin. Past that, the lines, that might be for another day. Just see how it does, you know, holding pressure here. I'll try driving it tomorrow and see if, you know, it's held pressure in the clutch system or no air's gotten in there rather. You might hear that wheel in the background hissing because it is still letting out tons of air. Definitely need new tires and a couple other things before this is truly roadworthy. The motor mounts on this thing is shot. The suspension, I mean, the car's been sitting for years. There's a lot of things that this car really needs to, you know, be a driver. Also, the doors here. This door is this handle's broken. You can see it's kind of coming out a little bit on this side, and no handle there, so need to replace those, get the door panel back on, clean up the interior a little bit more. But yeah, she's actually moving now, which is amazing. Until I get the e-brake fixed, I think I'm just going to park it on the side of the house so it's not on the inclined driveway, because having to keep it in first gear and chalked and stuff is no bueno, and I'd rather just leave it over there. Future plans for this car, definitely going to get a 3800 turbo swap. We just pulled the motor and transmission out of Project F here, so basically the same kind of engine, just with a front wheel drive transmission. Going to be looking for an F23. I know you can buy a 0 mile new one off, I forget the website, I'll put it here, for $500. That's a pretty good deal. Or I could go to a junkyard and pick one out. I've got a couple options for it, but I just want to get it running on its current drivetrain here, which I've done. I have a couple other things I'm going to be doing to it in the meantime. I think that's going to do it, guys. If you want to support the channel, please join us as a member down below. You get many perks on the channel. You can also just, you know, watch the videos, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and yeah, we'll see you next time.